Hey everyone, this is Alana with FidgetHaven Reviews, and today I'm going to be bringing you a really cool overview of some new spinners that I found on Kickstarter. When I saw these, I was immediately interested in them. They look very fun, and I can attest that they are. So what I have here are the Bit and the Qubit spinners by AltDynamic. I also have this extra prototype, which I am going to tell you a bit about at the end of this, so I'm going to move it off to the side for now. So as I mentioned, these are available on Kickstarter. I believe that it's going on for another 10 days, so I do hope that you'll check it out. The link for it will be in the description below. So I'm going to start off with the Bit spinner. Now this is a flicker spinner. It's really fun to play with. The body is made of aluminum, and the one that I'm testing here has been anodized a really nice metallic blue color. They will be offering several different color choices, and actually 2 new ones have been unlocked as stretch goals so far. So it features a single steel ball weight. The ball in this prototype isn't the one that's going to be used in the final version. This one has actually developed a small bit of oxidation, and the ones in the final version won't have this issue because they'll actually be stainless steel. So there are 2 materials available for the balls. There's the stainless steel, as I mentioned, and tungsten carbide for a little bit of extra outward mass. And the buttons are made of aluminum as well, and they've been anodized a really nice metallic red color. As with the bodies, they're going to be offering several color choices as well. The bearing is a ceramic hybrid R188, and the whole unit measures 1.75 inches, and it weighs in at 17.2 grams on my scale, including the buttons. Now the bit can be used in 2 ways. It can either be flicked, or it can be held horizontally and rotated using hand movements, similarly to the pendulum or to the axiom chop that I just recently reviewed. It's really fun and comfortable to use in both ways, in my opinion. When it's flicked vertically, it will spin around several times. It's honestly too fast for me to be able to count, but if I had to guess, I would say that I get anywhere from 5 to 8 times depending on how hard I flick it or what angle my hand's on. So the light weight of the material does allow for very easy flicking without suffering from any hand or finger fatigue, which I greatly appreciate. To play with it horizontally, as I mentioned, it just takes hand movements. It only really takes very small hand movements to get it to spin around. It's pretty easy. The threaded buttons are made of aluminum. They've been anodized metallic red, and they have a blasted texture to them. I have to say, I'm really loving these buttons. I find that they're reminiscent to the ones that are found on the Crusader by Castfly. They're slightly concave, and they feel very natural and comfortable to hold. They have a diameter of 19 millimeters. The bearing housing has raised lips on both sides of the bearing, allowing it to sit deep within it. When the buttons are screwed on, they almost entirely encase the bearing and seal off the housing area. The design makes it much harder for any dirt or dust to get into your bearing, which means less cleaning. The buttons are fairly smooth, but the blasted texture does give them some additional grip. The bearing is a hybrid ceramic R188. As it isn't a traditional spinner, I didn't do any spin time tests with it. I find the bearing to be pretty enjoyable. It's mostly smooth with the tiniest bit of feedback, and it is quiet. The bearing came shielded, but I removed the shields for cleaning so that I could get a sense of what the differences between shielded and unshielded felt like with this particular bearing. Now I haven't really noticed a difference in performance, but I do feel like it would be somewhat difficult to tell as they're not really traditional spinners. The Qubit is a bar spinner, and as you can see, I have 2 that I've been testing. Both of the bodies are made of aluminum. This one has been left as raw machine finished aluminum, and this one has been anodized metallic red. They feature 2 ball weights. The raw aluminum Qubit has tungsten carbide weights, and the red Qubit has steel ball weights. Now, as with the Bit, the steel balls in this prototype aren't the ones that are going to be used in the final version. These have also developed a small bit of oxidation, unfortunately. As you can see, the buttons are exactly the same as the ones that are used on the Bit, which means that they are interchangeable if you do decide to get both of them. The bearings in these spinners are ceramic R188s, and the spinners measure 2.75 inches in length, And the raw aluminum with tungsten weighs in at 42.7 grams with buttons, and the red with steel weights weighs in at 27.9 grams with buttons. I find that the Qubit is comfortable to spin both by flicking upwards and by pulling down from the ball weight. I really honestly enjoy the steel and the tungsten pretty equally. I keep going back and forth to try to figure out which one's my favorite, and every day it's something different, to be honest. I find that the steel is much more fidgety in general, and the spin has kind of an energetic feel to it. The tungsten, on the other hand, has a more relaxed feeling in its spin, and it provides stronger feedback in general, whether being held still or by rotating from horizontal to vertical. Now, as I'm sure it's not very surprising, being that they're a bar spinner that are very long and not so wide, they both have significant drag when rotating, though I still find myself enjoying it here, whereas I'm not usually partial to it. I find that I do experience a small bit of hand fatigue after significant use because of the length, and because my hands are very small, but it is very minimal. And I do find that I experience it more with the tungsten carbide weights than I do with the steel weights. Now, as I mentioned, the buttons are exactly the same as those on the bit, so they can be interchanged back and forth. It is worth noting that these buttons aren't tall enough to do table spins, so you will need some sort of raised object or stand in order to have any hands-free spinning. The bearing is a ceramic R188 with a nylon cage. Now, admittedly, I don't have a ton of experience with ceramic R188s. That said, these are the nicest ceramic bearings that I've ever used, whether in 608 or R188 form. Before I looked at them, I assumed that they were hybrid ceramic, but now that I've spent some more time with them, I can definitely sense a small bit of that usual vibration feedback and sound that ceramics have. I do find that they're surprisingly smooth and quiet considering that they are ceramic. Now, I still think that I'd prefer the hybrids, but if you like ceramic, I think these are great. I didn't test the spin time before I cleaned them, unfortunately. Whoops. So I only did 2 tests for each. So the raw aluminum with tungsten weights, my first two-handed spin on a stand was 3 minutes and 3 seconds. My second two-handed spin on a stand was 2 minutes and 58 seconds. For the red one with steel weights, my first two-handed spin on a stand was 2 minutes and 29 seconds, and my second two-handed spin on a stand was 2 minutes and 41 seconds. Overall, I'm really enjoying both types of these fidgets. I love how fidgety they are and the way that the buttons are made. I think that they both feel really nice to use and they feel really well made. Smaller hands might have slightly more challenging time with the Qubit. I mentioned to AltDynamic that I'd be curious to try one that has half the distance between the balls and the bearing. So we'll see if he gives that a go. I think that it might be a little bit easier for smaller hands. I think both types are good for distraction, but I feel the bit is better suited for concentration. For me personally, I find that I pay just a bit too much attention to the Qubit to consider it for hard concentration. So I'm going to end off with a little preview of the double button bit. It is not an official name. It doesn't actually have a name, so that is what I am calling it. I don't want to talk too much about it because they're not currently available, so I'm just going to give the basics. Hopefully, with enough interest for these, AltDynamic will decide to make them officially, and I really hope that happens because this one happens to be my favorite out of all of the prototypes that I receive from them. So I think that making it would be absolutely awesome. It has the same body as the bit, but instead of having a weight, there is another bearing and a button. The one that I've received has been anodized a metallic blue. It has 2 sets of buttons. One has been anodized matte purple and the other has been anodized matte black. Underneath the buttons sits one ceramic hybrid bearing in each. I find that it feels incredibly fidgety. It can be used in the same ways as the bit and then some. So I find that I regularly will spin it around in my palm, kind of like tiny connected bowding balls. Sometimes I'll twirl it around in my fingers, or I'll hold one button in each hand and then move it like a seesaw. There are really just a lot of different ways that you can play with it that make you feel comfortable. I find that it fits really well in the hand, and it's comfortable to use all around, really in any way that I found to use it. so it's useful for both concentration and distraction for me, depending on how I choose to play with it. I think that it's really versatile considering how simple it is. Without having the ball as a weight, it is very light. It weighs in at 13.5 grams on my scale, including buttons. But the bright side of that is that I haven't experienced any hand fatigue with it whatsoever. So once again, just to recap, these are the Qubit and the Bit Spinner by AltDynamic, and this is the unnamed double button one that's not currently available. I am Alana with FidgetHaven Reviews. If you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to mention them in the comment section below. I will post a link to the Kickstarter where you can find these, and I really hope that you'll check it out because I've been having so much fun with them for the past few days. And I'm also going to include a link to my written review. I am going to include the spin time tests that I've been doing lately, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. If not, I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you were able to learn something from this, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.